Adrian, we don't have much time, so I want to get you on stage. I want to get you talking. We were so delighted to have you winner of the AHIF Lifetime Achievement Award last year, and you've received so many awards over the years. You're now patron of the Wilderness Foundation, chairman of the Stendon University in South Africa, founder of CCFA. We're going to hear more about that, Community Conservation Fund for Africa, and we're going to hear about that in a second. So please, everybody, join me in a virtual welcome to Adrian Gardiner. Adrian, nice to have you with us.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's an absolute privilege, and I'm just sorry I wasn't with you in person to receive that award, which was obviously very heartwarming for me, and to be part of, I think, what you've done today, to have a worldwide audience on a virtual conference that you're doing, I think is just something to be completely admired. I've managed to listen to most of it today. I thought your opening session was incredible, just talking about Africa, where we all come from. So to you and your team, exceptionally well done. And thank you for including me in this program.
Excellent. Adrian, where do we have you speaking from?
I'm speaking from Port Elizabeth. I think it's the longest I've ever been in the town, having lived here for 52 years. I'm now in my 17th week, having not moved out of Port Elizabeth, besides to the game farm, which is quite close by. That's Founders Lodge next to Shamwari. But it's been quite a different experience. But all I can say is that the pluses of COVID is I don't think I've ever seen our environment here, the beaches and everything else, the bird life and all that come so alive.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the case. So just quickly, a snapshot. When did your life in hospitality and ecotourism begin?
The first farm was bought in 1989, which was a degraded, drought-ravaged piece of land just outside Port Elizabeth, which became Shamwari Game Reserve. And it was, Jonathan, it was really to have my own patch of Africa. I grew up in Zimbabwe. My dad was involved in wildlife and cattle ranching. And I suppose I always had this yearn to be involved in wildlife. So I bought this piece of ground, which was originally only about 2,500 acres, and was just to have a bit of wildlife there. And then the next farm. We'd been through 7 years of drought, and it eventually ended up at 25,000 hectares, and then realized that I had to make it a commercial entity. And I must say, I was laughed at, I was abused and buying all these farms. And I think the legacy really, Jonathan, is that the Eastern Cape today, thankfully for an incredible team that I had, it's not only me and my family, is that the Eastern Cape today is definitely a game destination. So not only was it Shamwari, but there's 16 other private game reserves, and Addo then converted the Elephant Park to a Big Five reserve. So it was a great part of my life the last 30 years. And then obviously with that, the conservation work that I've been involved with through one of the greatest friends that I ever had in my life and mentors, Ian Player. And I'm sure we all know who Ian was. He saved the white rhino from extinction. And, you know, he endorsed the work that I was doing. And he brought incredible conservationists into my life, like John Aspinall, Sir Lawrence van der Post, and many, many others that helped and endorsed the work that we did. So today, you know, obviously our model, we've taken around the world to a large extent. And the name Mantis comes from the Mantis Collection. Man and nature together is sustainable, from the praying mantis.
Okay, so fast forward to 2017. Tell us about your Accor discussions and how you came up with the venture with Sebastian and Accor.
You know, it was quite interesting because what they did was Accor took one of my top development guys, a guy called Craig Erasmus, and I think they were intrigued at really what our brand was about, you know, experiential adventure travel and that sort of thing. And, you know, our problem was that, you know, being the size that we were, we didn't have a distribution system. We didn't have a loyalty program. And one of the big things that I wanted to do, and when I spoke to Sebastian and the team, Stephen Daines and Mark wasn't there then, but all the top six of Accor, is that I really wanted to create a conservation fund. And I saw this doing it through the incredible loyalty program that they had, you know, 60 million plus China, and just getting those people involved in what we do. And I think when you consider that we've only been going 2 years and we've got the Community Conservation Fund really established, and we're not implementers, although we do small jobs ourselves, but basically we attached ourselves to the Wilderness Foundation, which you kindly mentioned, I'm the patron, to Tusk Trust, which Prince William's a patron, and to African Parks, which Prince Harry's a patron. And the three of those joined us, and they give us projects, and we finance them to implement on our behalf. But community is the important part of the CCFA.
Okay, so conservation is at the heart of everything you do today. Just as a recap, you've got 30 hotels, of which 30 lodges, of which 4 are outside of Africa now, which is one of your goals to expand outside of Africa. Is that correct?
Yes, and I think that was obviously the other reason to partner with Accor, because obviously they weren't looking at lodges and hotels of under 30, 40 rooms, 50 rooms. So, our footprint is really hotels under 60 rooms. I mean, the hotel in London, 35 rooms. In Rwanda, as a matter of interest, we're the biggest chain there now. We have 5 signed properties with another 3 in the pipeline, which are about to be signed. And 3 of those are government hotels, 2 hotels and 1 on the game log, Akagera Game Reserve. So it's a very interesting journey that we have with Accor now. And the support that we've had from them, I think they're all very intrigued in our brand.
Okay, so tell us about this, the fund, the CCF fund that you have. How is that impacting what you're doing as Mantis Collection?
Well, I think the important part is that, it's really very impactful right at the moment because of what we're going through in Southern Africa with COVID. And you know that Accor created the Artist Fund. And we've managed to get from that fund significant funding to help communities that are next to our lodges, next to our boats on the Zambezi Chobe River, and give them food packs and support them in a number of ways. So, we've always said is that if we don't involve the communities, we don't get them on our side next to what we're doing, I promise you, Jonathan, wildlife in Africa and everything that we love and stand for, the great assets of what we've got in Southern Africa, I believe are in for a really tough ride. So the CCFA starts with communities. And we've just started a project, the executive director of the fund, is starting a greening program right next to the community. And you cannot believe the buy-in of this. Simply vegetables, trees, and whatever else goes there. And we're desperate for funding to get that thing to go viral around Africa. And she's doing amazing work there, and we just need to get it off the ground, Jonathan.
Okay, so it was interesting because we had Ronak speak earlier about out of this COVID, there's going to be a more caring form of capitalism. Now you've been leading that for some time now, and I know we've got a session following us with Nick Van Marken that's going to be talking about the crisis in conservation at the moment. But how difficult are you finding it right now in terms of funding for this initiative, in terms of looking after the communities? Because that's a real crisis right now with your staff and with the communities not having tourism knocking at the door.
Jonathan, you've hit the nail right on the head. It's obviously with the communities, a lot of our people that work for us are on reduced pay and all the rest of it. So what is the logical thing that they're going to do? They're going to poach. And poaching is growing like you cannot believe. So we have to work out a way in which we can support them somehow and just educate them in the importance of that asset. And, if I was one of them, if you were sitting there with no food, you've got a family, you haven't got a job, what is the alternative? You've got to go for what we call bushmeat or whatever else there is there. So the impact is it's just heartbreaking to see. So, it's to a stage where at night I just lie awake for hours, almost in tears, to see all the work that we've done going down the drain. And we need support. And that's very difficult. You asked me, what's the fundraising going like? Our funds are there. We are raising funds, but not significantly enough to make the difference that we have to make to support the communities, to stop them from poaching. It's a tough job, Jonathan.
I'm sure it is, Adrian. In terms of your guests, I would imagine 80% are international guests outside of Africa. I loved what Minister Balala was just saying there about encouraging the locals to go visit, to go stay in our hotels, to help their brothers and sisters. Do you see any of that with your properties? Which, just remind me, how many are open at the moment?
I can be very sad and say 2. And they both
Two. Okay.
area. 2 hotels.
Okay.
Area.
And that is sad. And when do you plan to open the rest of the portfolio?
You know, what I always say to everybody about the experience that we're having now is that sadly, there's no view. We're not at the top of the hill. We don't know where we are. We're taking this on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis. With regard to the international tourist, you're 100% right. Our properties, to a large extent, depend on that. We would obviously open for domestic tourism, but we've looked at that carefully. The rate we can get, is it sustainable to do that? A lot of our people that work at our lodges live in communities near the lodges where sadly the virus is just spreading. And what would it happen? I bring staff in, they could infect our guests. Can you imagine the outcome of that on Facebook to our brand? We are being exceptionally careful of what we do, when we open, how we open, and the protocols that we implement. So it's not an easy one, Jonathan, to be able to say to you, we hope to open. I don't even know when the first international airline will come into Southern Africa. And as you know, a lot of our properties depend on Joburg being the hub, Cape Town being the hub. Our boats on the Chobe Zambezi depend 100% on South Africa being open, because we went to a completely different market, went to the cruise market, and we established all these new tourists to come to South Africa and do a cruise on the Chobe Zambezi. So it's painful. My plan at the moment, number one, protect my staff. Number two, protect the environment.
Adrian, how are you protecting your staff at the moment?
At the moment, we had a couple of months of what we call a government intervention, where they're like a furlough. They gave us that. The Heartist Fund is helping us in terms of giving us some money to keep them going. We're trying to keep as many as we can on what we call some sort of salaries that we can just get them. I'm helping people with school fees that they can't pay. That's in my personal capacity. So there's a lot of different ways in which we're trying to help. And, you know, when you think of it, 30 years and people, the reason that Mantis is where it is today is because of the loyalty I've had from the team that we have, from the energy that they give us and that they contribute to our organization. And we've got to survive this one, but it's bloody tough.
Yeah, I'm sure, Adrian. Just a question on your international strategy at the moment with Accor. I mean, obviously, that gives you the opportunity to expand now. Are you, as Rahul said earlier, you know, looking at down the road, looking at opportunities? Have you? Because I believe you've got a fund in place to assist, particularly in Africa.
We're busy with that, and funny enough, I was just on a call on that now. But just to give you an example of the inquiries that we have at the moment, you know, we discussed Russell Keimer when we were together there, and obviously that's coming alive. With Mark in the Middle East from Accor, there's a lot of inquiries coming our way, Jeddah, and we're looking at those. Paul, who you know runs that operation from the UK. Barbados, we've got an incredible inquiry. We've just signed 2 products in Costa Rica. We're busy with something in Scotland, in the middle of the UK as well. So there's a lot of very interesting properties that are coming our way. And I think that there are going to be a lot more. And what we've done in this last 3 months of lockdown, we've produced a series of videos about our brand and what we stand for, where we came from, the journey to date. And that has just gone exponential. And from that, people are saying to ourselves, we would like to be part of your family. It's not a business. Well, it's a business, but we're a family business. We have family values. We treasure those values, and I treasure all the people that have helped me get to where I am.
Adrian, one last question, because I can see my colleague on the screen at the moment. But if you had a Twitter following of 120 million people, which I think is the largest by Lady Gaga, what would you say? What would your tweet message be to the world right now?
Please give me $1 each towards our conservation fund, and I'll show you the difference we can make. And that's what I'm asking Accor to do now with their All Limitless program. All those loyalty members, they can't travel anywhere, but please burn some points to where we can take that money and make a difference. I promise you, I'll show you the difference that we've made. And all of those that contribute, I'll give you a considerable discount. Come and visit us and see the difference you've helped us make.
Be part of it. Well, Adrian, I would have loved to have discussed some of the projects that the CCFA is working on at the moment, because it's absolutely inspirational how you're redeveloping, bringing back the wildlife, bringing an absolute inspiration to us in the industry, and love to have spent more time with you. But Matt, I'm going to hand it back to you. And Adrian, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you both for everything that you do for us in this wonderful journey that you've taken us on today. I treasure it.
Absolutely pleasure, Matt. Adrian, thank you for joining us.